Okay, welcome back, everyone. You've got another episode of the Balanced Warrior podcast coming your way. We talk about health, we talk about wealth, we talk about fitness, family, how to put it all together in what we call having a life of multidimensional success. I'm joined today by my fellow coach, Chris Burlow, and our special guest, Eric Herrera from the Kolbe Corporation. And we're going to talk about how assessments, particularly the Kolbe assessment, could make a big difference in understanding what drives you, how you can best interact with others, and particularly for those of you who are creating or cultivating a team in your workplace, or maybe even in your personal and professional life, how it can be valuable and helpful. But first of all, good morning, gentlemen. How are you both?
Good morning.
Morning. Right. Doing great.
Great. Glad to have you here. Well, Coach Chris, you are a longtime advocate of the Kolbe system. Maybe you can just give us a little bit of background, your relationship with Eric, why you invited it on today, and what exactly is Kolbe from your perspective. Just a short interview or short answer, because we're going to.
Yeah, because I don't want to steal Eric's thunder. Okay. No, I go way back. I got Kolbe through Strategic Coach when I went through Coach way back when in the early 2000s. Maybe 2005 or something, and they had me do an assessment. And a funny little story is at that time we were franchising the schools, and we would go to this attorney's meeting, this attorney's office, and we'd stay there for 5-6 hours, and I was dying. So I took my assessment, and it said in my assessment to avoid stress, stay away from long meetings and confined spaces.
Yeah.
So I went back there that next meeting, put the Kolbe on the table. I said, "You guys have me for an hour, and I'm out of here." Right? Wow. It was killing me. And that's when I realized it was really, really accurate and an incredibly powerful tool. And since then, not having any formal training, I had a lot of clients, and Paul and I would both have clients take the Kolbe, and we would discuss it, but not having the education behind it. So then we decided, I went and became a certified consultant through Kolbe. And I think it was one of the best decisions we ever made. Gave me such an in-depth knowledge of the wisdom behind it. And that's when I met Eric. And Eric was my rep. In fact, Eric even sold me, I think, on to take the certification program. Mm-hmm. And then from there, he continued to be my rep. And just recently, I guess, Eric, there may have been a promotion where now Lisa is my rep, and she's been wonderful, by the way, a couple of years ago. But anyway, he's a source of knowledge, has a great understanding, great energy. And to add, he is a fellow martial artist.
That's right.
So we have the right person from Kolbe with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get to our guest. So Eric, we're throwing around this term, okay, Kolbe and taking the Kolbe and doing the Kolbe. Tell us a little bit about your background in Kolbe Corp and what exactly is it that we're talking about? What is it that you do?
Yeah, so I'll start with Kolbe and then I'll kind of jump into my background. So broadly speaking, what Kolbe does is we help you achieve the things that you care about most. And the way that we do that is we identify the way that all of us naturally take action or problem solve, right? Think of it's a random Friday. I call you and I say, "Hey, Mike, I need your help with this." If I know how you naturally get things done, I can go to ask you for the right things, the things that you're going to be amazing at, or I can put you in a position to use those strengths. And so we identify through a pretty simple online assessment how all of us naturally problem solve or get things done. We've been doing it since 1975, and it starts with our founder, Kathy. And she was working with some really smart kids and figured out that even though these kids are all really smart, they got to the answer in different paths. And that was kind of her initial aha. And so she continued to test and refine the assessment to create what we all know and love today.
Okay. And how about your experience with the company? How do you come to be a assessment test representative?
Yeah. So long story. So my background is in sales. So coming out of college, actually while I was in college, I worked for a beer company, and I was basically, filling up liquor stores and grocery stores with beer, working off the back end of a beer truck. I moved from Indiana to Arizona, and I got a job with the beer company. I then moved over to a wine and spirits company to be a sales leader. And I was essentially stuck in my career. Everybody who was above me was kind of happy. They didn't want to go anywhere. And so I was trying to find, I wanted to move up, continue to progress in my career. And kind of by dumb luck, I ran into another assessment and consulting company. And so I joined them as their director of marketing. And to learn the business, I went out on sales calls with their consultants. And as I'm sitting in the room with consultants and business leaders, I was like, this part is way cooler. I want to do that. I don't want to do this marketing stuff. So I basically built out a business plan for, all right, here's how I can transition into being a consultant. So I was a consultant doing leadership development and sales training for about 5 years using a different assessment in Phoenix. Long story short, I kind of missed leading a sales team, being a part of a bigger organization. Kolbe was looking for someone to head up their sales team, and they're based in Phoenix as well. Kind of by dumb luck, I found it. And, I had an assessment background. I had a sales background. It all kind of worked together. Yeah. And so that was about 10 years ago when I kind of took over as director of sales at Kolbe. Then, continued to grow. I was, for a while, I was our VP of sales for about 4 years. And then a year ago, I moved to Central Texas. And because of that, my role transitioned again. So now I do a couple of things. One is I'm in charge of all of our strategic partnerships. So, finding great organizations that we can grow together with. And then the other thing is I'm one of our master consultants. So when we go out and let's say we do a leadership development program or we work with the senior leadership team at an organization, I'm the one that goes out and does that. So I get to be in the field all the time, hands-on, working with clients, helping to impact their business.
Great. And I guess it's that aspect of it. It's a pretty cool career path and some serendipity there that worked out real well. I knew of someone made me think about right away that worked out of the back of a beer truck, parent of one of our martial arts students or good family of martial arts students, and was also very physically strong because you have to lift up a lot of beer kegs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's in your master consultant capacity that we want to talk to you a little bit more. And I know that we're still possibly starting in the middle a little bit, that some people may not be clear on what we're talking about. They may have taken a personality test in their mind, meaning that they flipped through a magazine one time and it said, hey, here's 10 questions to find out what kind of personality you have. Are you more a thinker or more of a doer or whatever? So let's dig into the details a little bit more. And even on the screen, anybody that watches the video of this, they'll see that you have Eric 5392. And, Chris and I have done this test before, and I know that I'm a 6382 and Chris is a 3287. Those refer to some specific categories of things. Let's start to share some of the Kolbe language of assessment categories or outcomes of the assessment to explain people a little bit more what they'd be getting when they look into something like this.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to kind of take a step back and we're just going to look big picture. So the three of us, every person in the world, we have a number of strengths locked inside of us. And those are part of our superpowers. The ancient Greeks had this concept called the 3 parts of the mind. If it's easier, think of it as 3 buckets of strengths. But we all have these buckets of strengths. One of those buckets are our cognitive strengths. Things like knowledge, intelligence, skills, that all falls in that cognitive piece. Then you have what's called the affect, things like motivation, personality. Most of the assessments that people are familiar with fall in that, motivation, personality bucket, whether it's DISC, Myers-Briggs, what Disney princess character are you on Facebook, right? Obviously, some are a little bit more scientific than others, but they're all trying to identify something around personality. Are you more extroverted or are you more introverted? Are you steady, stable, patient, or are you impatient? Knowing both of those parts of you is actually really, really important because, again, those are buckets of strengths that you have. At Kolbe, we just do something different. As I kind of mentioned before, we look at how you naturally problem solve or how you get stuff done. And what Kathy figured out is all of us get stuff done in 4 ways. And the first one is called Fact Finder. Basically, we all have to gather information Some of us need a ton of it. Some of us don't need very much. Then the next number is all about follow through. That's systems and processes. Some of us naturally think in terms of step-by-step guides. We naturally build SOPs. And we need that. Otherwise, we have chaos inside of our businesses, right? Then there are folks on the other side where they adapt and change things as needed. They actually do their best work when we thought we were going north, but now we're going to do a 180 and go the other direction. They actually thrive in that changing environment.
Mm-hmm.
That next one, the third one, quick start, is all about dealing with risk and uncertainty. Some folks, like the three of us, we do our best work in the unknown. We're not sure what's going to happen. We're just going to try stuff. We're going to experiment. Also, if you come to any of us and say, hey, Mike, I need your help with this. Hey, Chris, I need your help. We're going to throw out a bunch of ideas. Sometimes those ideas are amazing, and that's what gets us to that next level. Sometimes those ideas are terrible and they should never see the light of day. Yep. But either way, we have to get them out of our head first, and then we can start to sort through, all right, what are the winners and which one should we throw in the trash can? And then that last way that we all problem solve, the final number, it's called implementer. It's all about dealing with space and tangibles. So there are some folks like Chris where they actually need to build, construct. They need to get their hands on stuff, touch it, taste it, feel it in order for it to be real. And we should appreciate these folks because they build the physical world around us. They often end up as surgeons, dentists, and skilled trades. So, they build the roads that we drive on and the homes that we live in, those types of things. On the other side, we have folks who they work more in a conceptual world, right? They don't need to touch it or taste it for it to be real. You can describe something in a call like this and they can get the picture in their head. Really great example of this is company culture, right? Company culture is vitally important, right? That can be the key to success, or that's what can hold you back in your company. So it's a real thing, but you can't touch it, right? It's a sense I get when I walk in your office. It's the vibe I feel when I interact with your team, something like that. And so as I said, right, all of us solve problems in these four ways, just at differing levels. And so what we identify through our online assessment is how do you specifically get stuff done?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. This is phenomenal. And again, that phrase "get stuff done," right, applies to our personal life, our professional life, our company building life, our team building life. And it, once again, doesn't mean that necessarily someone is, poorly suited or incapable of doing any role or responsibility, but what do they need in order to follow through on it the best way? And so person A may say, hey, my friend got this new kind of car. I like it. I think I'm going to get the same one. And person B says, hey, I know I want to get a new car. Let me get the Consumer Reports issue. I'm going to look at all sedans in that price range, make a chart, compare them. They may actually both still end up driving the same car, but they get to it a little differently. Let's talk about first as an individual. Let's say somebody doesn't even own a company. They're listening to this. Why would they want to go on? And, again, we're not here to sell products and services, but we're telling somebody, hey, to have a balanced warrior life and be more successful, happier, be a better parent, be a better spouse, or be a better couple to your significant other, knowing yourself is big. Where would somebody go to do this, and what might be the benefit just of an individual who's not even running a company going on and doing an assessment for themselves?
Yeah, so to take it, go to Kolbe.com. In the upper right-hand corner of our webpage, there's a big purple button that says Take the Kolbe A. Click that button. That's how you take it. So super simple. As far as the applications or why you would want to do this, it applies to all aspects of your life. Anytime you're striving, you're trying to accomplish something, these strengths are coming out. So it could be, hey, I really want to communicate more effectively with my wife. Well, great. Your Kolbe results actually play into how you communicate with your wife and how she communicates with you. It could be, hey, I'm starting a martial art, and what's the best way for me to learn? What's the best way for me to progress? It actually plays out differently. As an example, for folks like me, for Chris, even for Mike, if we just have to do the same move for the next 3 months until we master it, we're going to lose our minds and we're not going to get good at it. But if instead we kind of learn the basics and we flow and improvise on the go, now we're going to be more effective at learning that skill, learning that martial art. In the business world, right? It doesn't matter if you're a salesperson, you're a operations person, you're the CEO. Great, you have amazing gifts, and we can show you how to lean into that, because whatever your results are, that's your superpower. And so the more you can do of that, the more you can lean into it. That's when you feel like you're in the zone, you're in your flow state where you can just keep working and things come really easy.
Yep. I love that phrase, lean into your gifts. And sometimes I think about it the way that people are wired. I know that I have my right-hand person in our company, one of our fellow master instructors, but she also, kind of runs the HQ for our company, multiple schools. And, if I give her a list of 1 to 10 things, she is going to go, I'm going to do number 1 to completion, then number 2 to completion, 3 to completion, 4 to completion. If you give me a list of 1 to 10 things, I'm going to do number 8 and then number 6. And then I'm going to get distracted and start thinking of items number 11, 12, 13 that aren't on the list, go spend some time on those and then come back. But as you say, you lean into the strengths, and knowing this of your employees can be helpful. Chris, we'd known each other for decades, Coach Chris. We knew each other as competitors and fellow school owners. And I said, hey, I know you guys are doing this. How about we create a podcast together? One of the first things that you said to me is, hey, sounds great. We'd love to do that with you. Known you a long time. We're like-minded in so many ways. We need you to do a Kolbe test. All right. Because we want to see what we're working with. How you use Kolbe, I believe, in your role as an employer in your martial arts schools. You've used it with all of your partnerships and the different businesses that you've had. What's some practical examples you can point to of how, this gets applied with the people you work with? And again, it doesn't mean you don't necessarily not hire someone for something, but how you end up giving them information or giving them direction.
Yeah, well, great question. Thank you. We use Kolbe with everything, right? Kolbe, anytime we go into any time of business, or we have to Kolbe somebody to even know if it's going to be, not even that if it's going to be worth moving, because the first thing I look for is culture. They have to align culturally. And then, because you could have a great matching Kolbe, but if they don't align culturally, it's still not going to work, right? So number one is check. Now, obviously, if they get to the point where we're going to have them Kolbe, there is a cultural fit.
Okay.
So then what I find is, yes, there's certain Kolbes that you would want to align with that I believe, and Eric, you could correct me, of course, like for an assistant, for somebody to help me, I don't want the same Kolbe that I have, because now I'm going to duplicate that, and then we're both going to get things going and nothing's going to get done, right? So I want to align somebody who has a high fact finder, high follow through, make sure that I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, because that's what I don't do so well, right? And then I'll get things going, then you just finish things up for me. So that is important. But I also believe most important benefit that I see is about communication, because now I would know. And I have numerous examples and stories where basically I will go through the Kolbe, and now I understand why that person is asking so many questions. I understand why they need to take more time to process that information. Like Coach Paul. Coach Paul, his Kolbe is a 3782. 3782. So this is our partner, right? So I know I come up with these ideas. I'm like, let's go. And he's like, all right, hold on. I have to process. I have to systemize. And then the next day, after he processes the information and systemizes, he's like, all right, let's go. He's as excited as I am, but he has a delayed start. Right? Not that he's delayed, but he has a delayed spark. He's not here, so we can make fun of him. But even last night, we had a meeting, and I'm throwing a lot of information at him. I'm like, yeah, this is great. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And he's like, hold on. I said, I know you have to process. We'll talk tomorrow. Right? So knowing that, like, knowledge is power, right? Knowing that you really have the ability to work more efficiently, more effectively, more collaboratively and more cooperatively. And I find that to be, for us, with my whole team, and for all of the clients that I work with, amongst the biggest benefit is that the improved communication, not only professionally, but also in their relationships. I know Kathy, my wife, Kathy, she's very close to me. It's horrible. We're both low fact finder. We're both 3, 2. She is a 7. She's like actually Paul, a 7 follow through, 6 quick start, and a 2 implementer. So she says to me, she's like always getting stuff out of her head. She's no, you understand. I have to tell you, I have to get it out of my head, and everything has to be organized in my mind. And I say to her, maybe you could just keep a little bit in there. And she never does, but it's okay. But the challenge is we'll do things and we won't do the research. We just take action, right? Because we don't have that filter. So if we had a third person in our relationship with a high fact finder, it would benefit us a lot. But that's what I believe is the most important. And Eric, what are your thoughts on that? And how am I doing?
Yeah, no, you're doing great. And,
as a consultant.
So I'm going to interrupt Eric I'm going to interrupt both for a moment and just say one more time, or ask for a little more clarification one more time. So for people who are following along, they're still new to this. The 4 categories, I believe, are quick start, fact finder, follow through, and implementer. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm just going to switch the order a little bit.
Please,
so when you look at the numbers, fact finder first.
Fact finder.
The second number is follow through. Third number is quick start. The fourth number is implementer.
Okay. And let's just take a moment, if we could, and just say one more time, so everybody falls on some kind of continuum on those. What would you say again? The definition of fact finder, or your rating is the degree to which you need details before making a decision or taking action. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So our assessment is a 1 to 10 scale. And one of the great things is it's not that a 10 is better than a 1 or 1 is better than a 10. We're just trying to figure out on that scale, where do your particular strengths fall? Because a 2 is just as much of a strength as a 9 or a 10.
Okay.
So that's kind of the numbering system. Then as we go through fact finder, the first one, it's all about gathering and sharing information. How much information do you need in order to go take action?
Okay.
Follow through is about creating systems and processes. Do you need to create systems and processes, or do you adapt and change systems and processes? The next one, quick start, it's about dealing with risk and uncertainty. Do you run towards risk and just try stuff to see what happens? Or do you push back against risk and naturally spot some of the downsides? The last one, implementer, is about using your hands. Think of a hammer or a screwdriver or a scalpel. Some folks need to use those kind of tools to get work done. Some folks can kind of work in their mind. They can visualize the end result.
Okay. And then you wanted to say a little bit more based on Chris's response.
Yeah, Chris was talking about communication, and something that we all know is you can only get so much stuff done by yourself, right? If you're going to build the next Amazon, the next Tesla, something like that, you're going to need a whole bunch of people. And so what we know is we're all amazing at something, but none of us are amazing at everything. So you have to start to bring people into your world that are different than you. You want those differing strengths, but those differing strengths can sometimes cause a little bit of the friction. And so as Chris was mentioning, right, if you know your business partner or your teammates' strengths that are different, those differences don't grind on you as much because you understand that's just them being them. And it also kind of serves as a guide for, all right, how do I adjust to their style a little bit, right? How do I move over to their side? Because if I move over to their side a little bit and they move over to my side a little bit, now, right, we're finding that common ground and we can really start humming along and get some stuff done.
That's great. I mean, I see so many practical applications from what we're talking about, and even some things that we kind of inherently come to. I'm often telling people someone will say, hey, I'm going to open up a martial arts school and I want to partner with this other instructor friend of mine. He's great at teaching. I'm great at teaching. He's very charismatic. I'm very charismatic. Neither of us know a whole lot about the business side or want to do the sales, but we want to open this school and say, oh, wait a second, if you just have another version of yourself, this is probably not going to go that well because the business itself needs both roles to be fulfilled, and someone's going to have to take it. By comparison, someone else I know opened a school. They were both great teachers within our organization, but they said from the beginning, aha, you're going to take care of this side of the mat. I'm going to take care of that side of the mat. They were both great martial artists, but one was able to lean more into taking care of details, organizing marketing plans. The other was able to more lean into running the classroom, interacting with students and parents. And that school's humming along just great. But a lot of times when things break down, it's because, okay, neither person is saying, hey, I don't want to touch that area. It's not my favorite area. And practically speaking, there are people, like you said, for building your team who actually find joy in doing the things that you would hate to do, right? Looking at spreadsheets all day or filling out lots of data or sitting in front of a computer would kill a person like Chris, right? And yet I have team members who love nothing more than sitting down and organizing, all the details for a 500-person tournament, right? And we've got to find those people.
Yeah, and so I own a martial arts school as well. And so when I was looking for my head instructor, I essentially looked for almost my opposite. So what I do in our schools, I run the marketing, I help coach our salespeople. But Vincent, who is our professor, he runs the day-to-day because he shows up and we have a curriculum. And so he knows, hey, today we're working on, we're working on hip throws as our takedown, and we're going to work on side control. And he follows that plan. You give Vincent a plan, he's going to nail that thing. Wow. If I was on the mat every day with our students, I would roll in and be like, I don't know, sounds like a leg lock day. Let's do leg locks. And then I would do something completely unrelated, right? Like not pair the moves together. Like, all right, we did leg locks today, and tomorrow we're going to do chokes for mount or something like that. So yeah, you want to find somebody that's very different than you to run different parts of the business.
And, you're starting to get into that anyway. Again, I can see that within the Kolbe organization, your team even puts it on screen when you do meetings, which I understand why that would be effective, right? So you say 5-3-9-2. So, again, how does that play into day in the life as you go about, setting up your day, being a 5-3-9-2, which means being a kind of middle level on the fact finder, kind of lower on the follow through, rather high, almost the highest on a quick start, right? Again, so an idea guy, let's get going. But 2 on an implementer. How does that factor into the way you operate? I guess even I'm not sure about your family life, but with significant others, with your roles and responsibilities with your team and your staff. How do you see that coming into play? How often do you think to yourself, all right, I know because I'm a low implementer and a high quick start, I'm going to have to face this person or this task this way?
Basically all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. So you can see on my screen, those of you that are looking on video, you can see I have my results behind me there.
Wow. Okay.
We do that intentionally so that when I jump into a meeting with somebody, I immediately know, got it. I know how I need to adjust to them, and I know how I can use the strengths that they have, and they do the same thing to me. And so, as I think about, even structuring my day, I build my day around my MO. Meaning I don't have, let's say, a 3-hour block where I'm going to review contracts or something like that. I have to review contracts as a part of my role, but I'll do it for 10 or 15 minutes, and then I go do something else. I have a whiteboard on the other side of my camera there. So I'll review contracts, and then I'll go brainstorm on my whiteboard. And then I'll come back and I'll review contracts again. I kind of break up my day. Or, we all have those things where they have to get done. I put little blocks, little schedules on my calendar, and my calendar dings and says, Eric, go do this. And then it dings again and says, Eric, go do this thing that was a complete 180 from what you were previously doing. Because I need that variety. I need to change things up.
That's great. Yeah, I found out sometimes when designing my own schedule that I'll realize that there's work that I have to do and work that I would like to do. And sometimes I'll be procrastinating on work that is kind of urgent and pressing, but it's not the kind of work that I like to do. I don't want to sit down and revise this document or update this document. And this, we happen to be in summer or just the beginning of June, almost June when we're recording this. And I would rather spend time building out our back to school marketing campaign than I would proofreading a postcard that's supposed to go out now, because I want to move on from that project and I want to go to something else. So instead of thinking again, which I'm sure is the way Kolbe teaches it as well, instead of thinking, no, I just got to get over my bad side. I have to develop, these areas that I don't have. Again, you say we lean into our strengths. So how do we still develop ourselves or develop our people? Well, we don't think of our Kolbe scores as limitations, right? Oh, I'm not good at this, or this employee's not good at this. Make that distinction. The distinction between a low Kolbe score and she's just not good at that, he's not good at that. We've got to improve their ability in that.
Yeah. So one thing that people get wrong when I talk about leaning into your strengths is they're like, oh, the Kolbe guy told me I don't have to do this. That's not what I'm saying, right? Yeah. There's parts of everybody's job. We all have to get stuff done, right? Those of you that are parents, you still have to feed your kids regardless of your MO, right? That's not an optional thing. You have to make sure your kids are eating great foods and that sort of stuff. So in order to get the work done, just find your way of doing it. So again, it's all right, great. I naturally, if you sit me down and I have to stare at a spreadsheet for 6 hours, I'm going to lose my mind. But sometimes you have to look at the data. You have to look at numbers, things like that. And so you develop hacks. Like a hack for me, when I'm looking at spreadsheets, is I build dashboards, right? I have all that data that plugs into a dashboard, because if I can see, hey, this thing is pointing left and this other thing is pointing straight up, that's enough info for me to say, got it. I now know what my next step is, what I need to take advantage of. So find some workarounds. And actually with Kolbe, we give you what those workarounds are based on your results, so you can still get that stuff done.
So let's talk about that. And Chris has probably had a little more experience with it with his company. So after the assessment, so someone could go on and do the assessment for themselves individually. They can also, I don't know if there's a cost involved with that. Do they also then, I don't know, get a team membership to be able to do it for their team members? And what kind of live support or person-to-person support do you offer to help them get even more out of it, particularly if they want to implement it for a company?
Yes. Me or Eric?
I guess I was asking Eric. Yeah, I know Chris knows about it. So let me get Eric first. Sorry.
So we have two parts of our business. One is we work directly with clients. Like I mentioned, I go out and work with senior leadership teams, that sort of thing. The other part of our business is we actually train up certified consultants like Chris to go out and do the same kind of work that I do. So if you have an interest in learning more about your instinctive strengths, your cognitive strengths, and then you want some one-on-one coaching to say, hey, I have these 4 numbers. What the heck do I do with it? Call Chris. He's your guy. He knows how you can implement this inside of your business.
Got it. Okay. So there's some more education available there. And again, we've been on the business track. Let's just go back to the personal, the in the home one more time. I mean, how does I didn't have this question originally, but made me think about it. How young could you give a Kolbe test to a child? Are they're again, they're developing, they're growing, they're still making sense of the world. Around what age would you say that, the assessment would be valid for a child?
So we actually have a separate assessment for kids. It's called the Student Aptitude Quiz, SAQ. And it starts at 4th grade, or think a 4th grade reading level. So if you have a 3rd grader who's a little advanced, they could take it. And it identifies the exact same strengths. I've actually done this with my daughter, who is getting ready to go into 5th grade. Okay. And she has an almost identical result to Chris. And so because of that, I've now adjusted how I parent and how I help her with schoolwork and those types of things. A really great example is, let's say we're doing, like multiplication tables. I'm just like throwing out, hey, what's 12 times 13 or something like that. If I make her sit at a desk and just answer me, she's terrible. She gets most of the questions wrong. But if I let her get up and do cartwheels or flip over this giant beanbag that we have in our loft, she will nail it. She will get every single one right, because she needs to get up and move around. That actually helps her focus and get stuff done. Wow. And so if you didn't know this, I would think my child is crazy, right? Like, why can't she sit still? Why does she need to be doing cartwheels all the time? I now know this, so I can coach her to use that strength. And I've actually put her in a school where she's allowed to learn that way as well.
Wow.
I actually, when I first did the Kolbe, my whole past made sense. Do you know what I mean? Like
Your whole path.
my whole past, like my whole history, like all through school, all the things that I've done, jumping off with a little BMX bike, we're all from the same generation, not hitting this huge jump, not knowing what's going to happen, be in the air like, oh crap, right? But there was I didn't think, I just went, right? Jumping off a cliff in the water and hoping it's deep enough, that's the kind of stuff. But now all that stuff made sense once I took the Kolbe. Eric, even when I was out there in Arizona at the last training I went to a couple of years ago, I'm a firm believer, man, if they can develop the Kolbe system and the public school system, it would change the trajectory of education. And I hope and wish that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, you think about school, right?
Yeah.
Normal school is you have a bunch of rows of desks, and you sit at your desk for a couple of hours, and you have your teacher in front of you talking at you or writing on the whiteboard or the chalkboard or something like that. For the three of us, especially Chris, that was probably really painful. I know for me, school was so boring and it was not practical. And so if I could have gone to a school like I put my daughter in, where she gets to run around and build stuff all of the time, it would have been so much better. And you learn so much more, and you get things out of it instead of just sucking it up and getting through school. If we could tailor it to that child's learning style, it would be way more effective.
Yeah, everybody, they want us in a mold, right?
Right. Only one, right.
They want us to learn a certain way in this, and they have to do it. They have, a lot of people that they have to cater to, but that the best educators are the ones that could instinctively identify what their MOs are. They maybe don't go through the process, but they know the children's strengths and needs and wants, and they're able to cater to it. That's what I would consider to be a master educator. But yeah, I struggled.
Well, you know what? My wife and I tried to be. We have two boys. They're much older now, 20 and 25. But when they were in school, my wife and I were actually not. We were very proactive in even though the school wasn't real crazy about it. They went to public school, but that we were still very proactive in which teacher are they going to get. Which teacher are they going to get for third grade or fifth grade or fourth grade? And the school really didn't prefer that you do that. But we said, you know what? We've got to do everything we can to try and set our kids up for success. And my younger son, David, who does jiu-jitsu, by the way, as well, but, we needed for him the third grade teacher that said, you know what? If once in a while he wants to stand up at his desk, that's okay. I get that. And yes, I understand that his math test is going to be turned in and there's going to be doodling all over it because he's actually turned out to be quite the tattoo artist. That's not his career, but he has tattoos and he gives tattoos. And, he needed that additional creative outlet in order to also be doing the mathematics stuff at the same time. And if there was going to be a teacher that was like, you wrote all over your math test, that was kind of not really the way to manage or help him to learn. And just kind of an interesting, because it's an opposite example of something Eric gave for my older son when he was getting ready for his black belt test, and he was still young because he did martial arts his whole life. He was probably 9 or 10 years old for his first degree black belt test, and we were practicing forms over and over and over again. And he's not really that physically into stuff. Yet when I found that if we did his form practice in front of a whiteboard, and I could say, hey, as a result of that form, I would give you a 7 on your stances, an 8 on your power, and a 9 on your focus, right? He was more into do the form, go put some numbers on the whiteboard, go do the form. So in a way, I turned something physical into something that was more academic minded, right? That was more number based for him. And Eric was talking about, he turned something that was number based and then say, hey, we got to give you some physical activity over there. So inherently good parents and good team leaders come to some of these concepts, but I see how the Kolbe assessment can get you there just much faster and actually create a common vocabulary. I mean, Chris and Paul and myself, we do reference it all the time, right?
All the time.
Interacting with each other. I mean, Eric, this has been very helpful. Any other, you said, again, you work with some big companies. I'm assuming you've worked with some companies where they're giving this assessment to maybe not even dozens, but maybe hundreds of employees? You've had that experience, I assume, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've worked with parts of the DoD, which, there are millions of people inside of the DoD,
Yep.
Giant, Fortune 500 companies, and they've rolled out, throughout, an entire division or an entire department. And yeah, I think most of us know that there isn't one way to do things, or at least enlightened people know, like there isn't a single way to do things. All we're doing is giving you a guidebook for, all right, how does Chris do it? And how is that different than the way Eric does it or the way that Mike does it? And if as a leader, I can empower my team to, hey, this is the end result I want. Get there your way, right? If I can empower them to do that, they're going to thrive and they're going to be amazing. And so that's what we want. We want you to be in your amazing, be in your gifts, rather than saying you must do it this way.
Can I ask a quick question? So Eric, obviously we know Kolbe really identifies your natural instincts, right? Natural inclinations. Is there another assessment that would complement Kolbe?
Yeah. So remember back in the beginning, I was talking about that 3 parts of the mind, or the 3 buckets of strengths. Kolbe only measures how we problem solve or how we get stuff done. So it's just one component. Find another assessment in those other 2 buckets, right? The cognitive is knowledge, skills, intelligence. So things like the Wonderlic, predictive indexes, learning indicator, even an IQ test, right? Those all help you to understand that person's cognitive strengths. On the affective side, things like motivation, personality, most of the assessments you've heard of fall in that bucket. So there are thousands. DISC, Myers-Briggs, predictive index, working genius, Enneagram, Strengths Finder. So my only advice is, as you're looking at those, make sure that the science is pretty dialed in. As an example, Myers-Briggs is a little iffy on the science because it's kind of open source, but there are some good ones out there. You should actually be taking assessments in all 3 parts of those mind. That's how you can really learn more about yourself.
Yeah, but then thank you. That's what I thought as well. But I think to really reinforce the fact that Kolbe is the only one that has that one single bucket, right? And it makes it really an essential, and I think a need for organizations.
Well, this has been phenomenal. I'm going to give Eric a chance to think about what his closing comment is going to be. But since we're all martial artists, I'm going to throw in one other quote from a well-known, in a way, martial artist, which is Sun Tzu. And one of the most famous quotes from Sun Tzu was, of course, that, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, or the opponent, right, you'll be effective or successful in 100% of the battles, right? And if you know yourself but not your opponent, you're going to win only 50% of the time. And if you know neither yourself nor your opponent, you're going to lose 100% of the time. And I see this really falling into this, and we see it happening all the time. So, right, if you really know your strengths, but you want to be blind to your spouse, or wish that they would be a certain way or be more like you, or could get over the issues that they have, you're going to have conflict. If you're going to have that with your employees, right, that, hey, I just wish that everybody would follow along and be more like me, you're going to have conflict. But if you can understand where you're coming from, understand where the other person is coming from, then you're going to create a much more collaborative success. Eric, whether about Kolbe or what, just as a concept of, having this knowledge and utilizing this knowledge, anything to finish us up with? So
I'll stick with the martial arts thing. So my professor in jiu-jitsu is the equivalent of sensei in other martial arts.
Yep.
So my professor has this saying, it's not wrong if it works. And that's when you're doing moves, right? And it's very similar concept in life. The way that you get stuff done isn't necessarily wrong, as long as you're getting the end result that you're looking for. So lean into what feels natural. If you want, go to Kolbe.com, click that purple button, learn what your cognitive strengths are, and it will give you specific guidance on how to do it. But you have a best way of getting stuff done. The more of that you can do, the better your life is going to be. Phenomenal. Okay. And that's for those wondering, it's Kolbe, KOLBE.com. They can learn more about this assessment. They can take the assessment. Again, personally, professionally, we've all found it to be extremely valuable. Eric, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today, give us some insights on that.
Chris, again, you're the first person that, turned me on to Kolbe. And again, I know you're a raving fan, and we see the benefit of it all the time in our businesses and in our partnerships. So I appreciate that. Everybody, if you enjoyed what you heard today, again, the Balanced Warrior podcast is going to be the source of tips, strategies, interviews to help you to live a life of multidimensional success. We're going to continue to bring you the best in guidance, both martial art themed and just business success themed, to help you personally and professionally. Thanks for joining us today. And give us a like, give us a share, and of course, keep joining us here on the Balanced Warrior podcast.